Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to season one of Therapy in Real Life. Today's episode is pretty special for a couple of reasons. Reason one being it is Valentine's Day, or we also say Galentine's Day. Reason number two is I have a special guest, friend, and colleague. And I'm going to allow her to introduce herself because I told her before we started, I feel like intros, I've tried to do them and they're mad awkward for me. And then I feel like they're kind of like WWF or something intros that just, I don't know, it feels inauthentic. So I am going to allow Miss Whitney to introduce herself, tell you a bit about herself. All of the guests that come on the show, there's some type of relationship that I have with them. Some is personal, some is professional, some is both. Some may be people that I aspire to become more like. Whitney in her journey of health, healing, spirituality. I'm still on my path to center myself and do some of the things that she'll be talking to you guys about today. So I am going to allow you to introduce yourself, Whitney, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what this day means, and then we'll just jump right into it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, hello, 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 everyone. My name is Whitney Radford McGee from WhitneyRadfordMcGee.com. I am a spiritual therapist as well as a recovery coach. So I help millennial women, professional millennial women who struggle with people pleasing, who struggle with overwhelm and struggle with getting rid of unnecessary stress. They also struggle with having a good relationship with themselves. And so through my practice, that's what we work on. I use the chakra system as a guide to be able to help, as well as Reiki. And then I bring in the psychological piece to make sure that, that mental is secure. But I enjoy bringing in spiritual practices because that's something that I feel that we got have gotten away from, and that helps centers us, that helps ground us, and we are spiritual people. So why not bring that to the therapy room? I don't see it happen too often, and that's what I wanted to do, is to bring that in, because whenever I needed it, it wasn't there. And so I'm like, let me be that for someone else, because I know how good it feels to be able to have that good wholesome conversation with someone,
Yeah,
connecting the body, mind, and spirit together.
yeah.
So if you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website, WhitneyRadfordMcGee.com. I have a YouTube channel, and same thing, same name, as well as an Instagram.
And we'll make sure that we have the spelling of Whitney's name and her website there. We'll have all of that information below if you're watching this on video so that you're able to click on it. And anytime that you need to know who a guest was on the show, just feel free to visit our site and all their information will be there. So, Whitney, you touched on a bunch of things that we're going to come back to because they're points of interest. When I said, like, there's parts of you that I aspire to be, I think we often talk about mind, body, spirit, but there's not always that integration of it. So, when we think about this day, we think about Valentine's Day. Um, Different people celebrate it for different reasons, right? I hear a lot about, well, it's commercialism and it's a romantic day with a bunch of cards, which I didn't get my husband a card. That's a whole different story. Different, that's different stuff. But I wanted to wear this shirt today, and it says love, although if you're looking at it's backwards, but it says love. And the reason why I wanted to wear this is because it's Valentine's Day, and yes, it symbolizes romantic love is one of the areas. But I think one thing you touched on, and I've often talked about in the work that I do in my practice with identity work, empowerment work, and authentic living, is self-love and that journey of self-love. And so when you think about a day like this, I find that people often get sad. And I mean, it makes sense because right now, what people see are sound bites and highlight reels from other people's lives on social media, on TV, movies have romanticized love. And it's funny, I was just talking to someone last week about how in other languages they have different words for different types of love. But in the English language, it's only love. And, it doesn't mean that we need to have different, meanings, sorry, words for it, but there's not a real definition that is really concise, like this word means this or this concept means that. And so what I tell people, the long and short of it is, at the end of the day, if you don't have self-love, the romantic love doesn't matter, the love from your family and friends doesn't matter, none of those things matter because they're all external things. And so that internal experiencing is super duper important. So I want to remind everyone on this day, which actually were pre-recorded, so when y'all see it, it won't be Valentine's Day, but I hope that this message still gets through regardless of what your current situation is with the love from friends and family, the love of your mate or the desire to have a mate. I hope that you are listening really intently to today's message and today's guest as we kind of talk about the journey that also includes self-love. Like, that's a huge component to a lot of what Whitney does, the releasing of some things and then the acceptance of some other things. So without further ado, Whitney, I'm going to start you off with our first question that we always ask all of our guests. Yes, you're a clinician and you're a coach, but you've also been a client. And so when you think about your journey around therapy as a client, what would you say was the incident or the culmination of events that led to you seeking therapy or that brought you to therapy?
Well, um, so first, therapy in my community, I will say, because so one thing I always try to do is when I talk about myself and like my journey, I try not to place any blame on like particular parents, like my parents or our grandparents or anything like that, because it was a community thing. And so in our community, therapy was not looked as something, looked to as a go-to.
Yeah.
You don't do that. It was, we were and I say we as a therapist, but like therapists were seen as, I don't know, just had this stigma on us that you don't go there. It was like we were some type of witches or something. Like it reminded me, like, Salem witch trials type of thing. Like,
Yeah.
don't go there, don't go to them, because all these things can happen. And so, because that was the stigma, then there was no you need to go to therapy or anything like that. But I got pregnant when I was 17 and had my son when I was 17,
Hmm.
and so pregnancy, as you're experiencing, and it takes over the body, and that whole time that you are cultivating and getting your body ready to produce a human being, you go through some changes. And being 17, and so not even fully mature as an adult,
Hmm.
my body wasn't ready for that, and so even as an adult it's not truly ready, but as a child it definitely wasn't ready. And so after I had my son, I had to, it was a life transition that brought me to therapy, but that's not what the therapist seen it as. But now looking back on it, whenever I do my work back with myself, I'm like, that was a life transition.
Absolutely.
I had just had my baby, and then I went to college that fall. So I had my son in the fall of '05,
Hmm.
graduated in May, and then went to college in the fall of '06
Hmm.
without my baby.
Hmm.
Did not know the implications of like what that was going to do to me.
Hmm.
And so I'm like going through all this stuff, and all this is happening, trying to stay in school, trying to get my grades up, but still trying to go back home so I can see my son so that he knows like I'm mama, I'm here, but I'm going to try and build my career, like
Yeah.
just that whole balance. And so I had a a friend, I believe, a friend or a mentor was like, "Hey, on the campus they have therapists," and I was like, "Oh, then I can go there, and nobody will know." That you gave you the
Mhm.
it's going to be confidential. You don't have to worry about it. And I'm like, one, I'm away from my family
Yep.
because I lived on campus. So
Mhm.
one, I'm away from my family. Nobody would have to know. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't know me here, and because of where the counseling office was located, it had different offices inside, so nobody knew where you were going
Basically,
exactly.
people are not gonna be in your business.
Yes, and that's what it was. No, I'm sure nobody cared, but when you're in your head, like I'm like, okay, nobody's gonna know, nobody's gonna go back and tell. And so that was my first thing that sent me to counseling, was just I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that like emotionally and
Yeah.
physically I was depleted. I was using other coping mechanisms to try and work
Mm.
through my emotions and my mental distress at that time. And so that's what sent me was I was trying to like grasp. I was grasping. I was like, man, I need to go somewhere. Something's happening. I'm failing college. I can't go back home like this because weight on my shoulders. I gotta do this. I gotta be this. I can't. And so
Yeah.
it really wasn't to take care of me. I think it was more of just to figure out, I was looking to try to figure out what I needed to do. Like, what do I need? Tell me what I need to do. Give me the playbook and I'll go. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. So when you think about it, were you trying, did you feel like you were trying to fix a problem? Like, okay, if I could fix this problem, then life can go on. Or do you feel like you were trying to get clarity? Like, walk us through, for a person who may actually be in your situation, a young adult that may actually be there, and this may resonate with them. Walk us through what that was like for you. Like, I know for me, when I was in college having that was my first mental health crisis, I would say. And I remember it like clockwork. Virginia State University, the Whiting Hall, going up the stairs, and I almost tripped, and they caught me, and then tears just came down. Like, I was coming from Easter Sunday, it looked nice, everything looked nice, and I just remember just crying, and my roommate was trying to figure it out. She got my best friend. They called my mom couldn't figure it out. We're down in Virginia. I'm from Pittsburgh, and I remember just feeling enveloped, like I was in a cave, just like enveloped in sadness, in darkness, and it was a heaviness that I just couldn't shake. And I had, anxiety, but I didn't know what it was called back then. But remember that feeling, that visual. I have a visual of that feeling that I remember, of just being there and feeling like there is no escape for this. Like, all the walls are in, and you're in this cave and you can't climb out. It wasn't that way in reality, but perception is your reality, as you know. And so when you think about where you were at that point in your journey, and having to be away from your baby, and having to deal with the implication, first of all, hormonally, what your body's going through, from your child, emotionally, what you're going through, mentally having to juggle so many things. Not to mention, a lot of times, like you said, community, collective. There's a collective reasoning that we have of, we got to be there to make our people proud, right? Nobody sacrificed for me to go to college for me to not make everybody proud. So mentally, what's going on? And so when you think back to that time, kind of paint us a picture of what was happening for you.
I needed someone at that time to just listen. Cause like I had so much. So I think of it as my bag, like a child of the 80s and 90s, my Barney bag, right? So I just had so much stuff in my bag, and I'm like, I need to just like emotionally vomit. Like I just need
Mm,
to tell all this. I don't know. Everything was just all in a, like, now that I can look back at it, it was just all over the place. And so I just needed a place to be able to put all my stuff. And I just wanted someone to sit down and help me figure out what I needed to do next,
yeah.
but also figure out what to do with all this stuff that, like, that wasn't in the forefront. And I would definitely say it was my mind. It was,
Mm,
you know, not dealing with having probably not even the language to understand guilt,
mhm,
fear, shame, abandonment, like not even knowing, having that language. Because when I first went to college, I didn't go to school for social work. I went to school to be a dietitian
mm,
because I was wanting to. Health is like, that's my. I love talking about nutrition. I love talking about how food affects the body, and that's my first love, because I was like, I could tell even at that age, I was like, our people are hurting.
mm,
We got diabetes going on, like we got hypertension. What we're hurting, and I want to be able to help. And so that was my thing. I remember scholarship day, I wrote all about going to school to be a dietitian. So that's what I wanted to go for. And so at that time, like I said, I had all this stuff going on from my past, and that I call now, that has a name, and it's called the shadow. And so I have all this stuff in my past that keeps trying to come up and mess with me.
mhm,
And then I have this future thinking of like, oh my goodness, well, what are you going to do? What is it going to look like?
mm.
And then it wouldn't allow me to stay in the present. So I just needed somebody to listen, and I wanted somebody to help me sort out what I need to work on right now and what I can let go of in the past and slowly take my time and work through. But I wanted the pertinent stuff. But I know what was pertinent because everything was jumping
Yeah.
up, like everything was bothering me. So I'm like, I
Oh,
don't even know where to go. I just needed somebody to listen. I'm like, just listen to me
yeah.
and help me figure this out. And that's all I really wanted. I just need somebody to listen and figure out, because I'm so used to being the one that everybody, even at that age, adults too, would come to help them fix their problem. But then if I came to that same person, it's kind of like, well, I don't know, I don't know what you should do. Why don't you go find out?
Mm.
Well, I'm coming to you. Like,
Yeah,
well, I thought that's what
pray
adults were
about it.
supposed to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I needed some help, and so
yeah.
I just needed someone to be that for me at that time. And that's what I was hoping to get out of therapy.
Yeah. So there's the expectation of what we want to receive and then what actually happens. So for you, when you think back to it, and it's hard because now you know what it is for you, you know, but if you try to think back to that time before you went, what did you expect it to be like, one? And then two, what was the difference between your expectation and the reality of how it actually was?
So when I think back to that day, I'm not even sure if I had an expectation, just because like I was just at the top, like I was full. And because therapy was such a foreign word,
Mhm.
it was a it was foreign, and it was a no, you don't go there. So it was it was like it was forbidden. Like don't go there. So it was nothing that I looked into. The only thing I knew about it was probably what I saw on TV. And so I just figured I'd sit in somebody's office and on a nice comfortable couch, or lay back,
Down?
and I
So
was just going to talk. Yeah, I was just going to talk, and I was going to tell this therapist about all my business. And I expected to see a white male, and I expected that he would be probably like in his 40s or 50s. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to sit there. Wasn't sure about what all I would say, but I knew that I would be able to talk and say something. But I didn't. I just went into it. Again, I was just like, "Can you? I just need help." Like there was no expectation of them giving me any type of tools or anything. Didn't even, again, that wasn't in my toolbox to learn that knowledge, to know that's what they
yeah.
did. I had done some work, grandfather Google, because that's what I call Google. So I had Googled some stuff, and I was like, I might have ADHD. I may have a little bit of. I figured it was something to do with depression, but didn't know exactly. And postpartum wasn't even in my wheelhouse
Yeah.
to know that that could have been something. So I was like, I know it could be a little bit of depression, but I just need to focus, because now that, as I'm talking about, I just needed to fix why I couldn't focus in class,
Uh,
because that was the thing. Because in high school, it was easy. I was like, all you do is just, I could just show up and guess my way through half the stuff, because I already knew what I needed to know. And if I did have to study, I'd make sure I studied hard for that one test,
mhm.
because it carried a lot of weight. And then I knew that on the rest of the stuff, if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. Like it wasn't. But in college, oh no, 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 it was different.
Yeah.
They asked a lot more of me, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know about how to study properly and all these other things.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have to do. So that's what.
Functioning gets made it, and you're like, this might be a deficit area. Yeah.
Right. So I was just hoping she'd be like, hey, the studying piece, like maybe she can give me something with that, and I'll just be fine.
Right.
But like I said, I still had this boiling of like other things coming up that really needed to be talked about.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if I could just get this, maybe then I'll be fine. Because that's how life is. If I can just get this,
Yeah.
then I'll be all right. And the rest of the stuff I'll deal with later.
And then it falls over you like an avalanche. Once you get that one thing, you're like, oh, wait.
Ah,
Fine.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when you think about that first experience, and it's funny because I think you're like the second or third guest that we've had that was a Black woman and said that they expected they would likely find a white male therapist. Like that's what it would be. And I don't know, I can't remember what I first thought. I think I did think someone white, because back then we weren't in the field as much, but I also just didn't expect it. But yeah, a white woman is what I just assumed that I would have, and I assumed that they wouldn't care how my race or my culture played a part. So for you, looking back to your experience, who did you actually have? What was your first therapist, and what was your first experience with that therapist like? Because I know, like you said, I didn't have any tools, I needed help, I was trying to get from A to B basically. I didn't even know all the other stuff that may need it fixed. I just knew that this stuff needs fixed right now. So when you really went to that first appointment, what was that like?
She was a white female, and she couldn't have been too much older than me. Psychology student. So I saw a student. And but she was brunette, but she couldn't have been too much older than me. So maybe like 25, 26 maybe.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh, okay. I do remember seeing, the two-way mirrors that they have in there.
Yeah,
So I thought, yeah, I didn't know exactly what that was, but I was just like, oh, okay. Like I come into this place, she's like, hey, we're going to sit in here, we're going to have a conversation. And it felt like a doctor's office.
mm,
I do remember that. So I'm like, okay. And then like now, just again, just thinking about it, it was like, what am I going to say? Like, how is this
Mhm.
going to start off? What's going to be, what are we going to do?
Yeah,
What does all this look like? What have I gotten myself into?
yeah.
Am I going to say something that's going to get me in trouble? Like, all of that started coming up then. So I'm like, was this a good idea?
Mm,
She didn't make me feel any other way. It was just, again, myself having all these thoughts in my head while I'm sitting there, waiting to have this my assessment.
yeah,
I'm like, I don't know. And then making sure like you stay on topic. You only talk about this because this is why you're here. You think something's wrong. I know other stuff is going on, but I'm like, nope, you gotta stay strong. Just tell her what she needs to know and let's get done,
yeah.
because I just needed that insert cartridge. Insert, hey, this is why you messing up in school. Let's fix it. And that was my way to fix it. Was everything else, just calm down. Don't talk about it. You're here for school stuff. That's it.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure, now as a clinician, we see clients come in like that. Like, this is just the area. Just, I've literally had clients sometimes say, well, all my clients are my favorites, but one of my favorite clients, we were laughing about how when she first started, she was like, so I'm a mess. I don't finish things. I don't do this. I don't do that. So I know technically you can't, but can you fix me? And that was like literally her question. And I was like, you just answered your question. No, I can't. No, no, I can't. You can do some things to improve you if that's what to fix you would mean you're broken, and I don't think you're broken. I think there's some wounds there that need to be healed, and so we can work together, we can partner together to do that. But when you think back to that experience, did you feel relief? Did you feel any type of satisfaction? And maybe not, I always tell people your first session, a lot of times you might feel some relief, but everyone doesn't build rapport, especially it depends on like the clinical skill of clinician as well as the therapeutic relationship. So some relationships take a few sessions to warm up, especially if the client is very guarded or if the therapist their approach is more, I would say, sterile or bit, right? So it may take a little bit longer to build rapport. But for you, what was that experience like? Was it an enjoyable experience? Was it helpful to you back at that time? Or can you see how, while therapy might be beneficial, that didn't really move you very much?
I can remember it was very sterile because, like I said, it just had doctor's office
Yeah.
vibes. And her questioning, and so I guess that's the part where I have to give my body props, because if my ego was like, hey, this is all we're here to talk about. But all she did, and in our assessments, you asked that one question
Mhm.
and waterworks just came. And I don't know if,
Oh,
I don't remember the exact question because I'm sure it was like, what brought you here? And I was like, hey, it's just school stuff. That's it. And then, as you get deeper, and I'm sure when she was like, well, what about family history? And I'm like, oh,
I got to talk about all that.
um, yeah. And I just remember just talking. I was like, this happened and this, and oh, also this. And so I'm sure like, it was a release. It was a release to be able to talk about all that stuff because I've never been able to talk about it
Hmm.
and actually just have somebody listen. Like it was usually like, oh yeah, girl, me too. Let me tell you this about, if I was going to friends, let me tell you this about my family. And I'm like, but I just listened to a whole 30 minutes of your stuff and now I can't even have the floor. So, so that's what I tell my clients. I'm like, I'm here to listen. Your girlfriends are there for y'all to be like, hey, this, that, back and forth. I'm like, I'd give you the floor. And so she gave me the floor. So although it was like kind of doctor-ish,
Yeah.
it was what I needed. And and it's kind of like you take what you can get at this time. So I was like, well, let me just tell about it. You want to know, you're asking me these questions. So I'll talk about it. And so it was just a chance for me to be able to talk about some stuff that I didn't talk about to
Yeah.
anyone that I had been holding in for years. So it was definitely a release, and it was the release I needed. Just to be able to get out and to let the conscious part of my brain like, oh, this what's been hiding, in the back, and what's been playing and triggering me to do things that I wouldn't necessarily do.
Yeah.
But I was just trying to cope. And so at this point, yeah, when she just started with these questions, basic questions, I felt free. I was like, I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know to a certain extent. Like I still had my guard up, but it was enough for me to empty the cup
Yeah.
so that I can keep going.
Yeah. It sounds like to me it was an unburdening that you were able to do. She gave you the space. And I think, at the bare minimum, I think people have different varied skill levels when it comes to therapy, the therapists I'm talking about. And there's different approaches that take different avenues. but I think at the bare minimum, that clients should be able to feel a release and an unburdening and safe enough to do both, if nothing else, regardless of the methodology or the approach, regardless of the skill level, that's like the basic fundamental. You should feel safe enough to be able to feel like you can release and unburden yourself, even if not 100%, at least 50, 60% to get some of that off of your shoulders. So I'm glad for you that that kind of was that was a good experience, a good enough experience, obviously, to lead you down a path. But when you think about your journey of therapy as both client and as clinician, what are some of the things that have impacted that journey most that people might not know as someone coming from a dual role?
Hmm. Me doing my own work impacted it because even after I got done seeing that therapist, it was a while, a long time before I went back to traditional therapy because I needed more, and I wanted it to come from, I needed it more. And now looking back, I needed more. And honestly, I needed it to be spiritual,
Mm,
not necessarily religious, but I needed to do, it was just something calling me to like, no, I need more. And that comforted me. Like anytime I would bring, anytime I'd sing or when I'd pray or just spend some time journaling, like that, those were the things that I needed to comfort me. And so, me doing my own work and then working with other women and getting to see them as they progress, and like, whenever I kind of hesitate on maybe saying like, hey, you should try this, but then when I do, they're like, oh my gosh, that would help. I'm like, okay. So
yeah,
just me taking the time to do my work and explore, because being independently licensed, I can do it like niche wise. I can go in and talk and do whatever I want when it comes to the type of therapist I want to be.
mm,
But whenever I was working with companies, they were like, no, this is, you gonna see everybody.
yeah,
But now getting to work on my own, I get to dive into the spiritual, into that spiritual area a lot more, and
yeah,
that's comfortable for me.
yeah,
That makes me, that is me, that's who I am to my core.
yeah.
And so just taking that time to do my own work and getting to see, well, what if I could build a therapy practice that would suit me at that time whenever I needed it, what would that look like?
Mm,
And so that's what I've been building, is like, well, it would support me in this way. It would,
yeah,
I'd make sure that I would ask questions about what I was eating, who I was hanging around, what my spiritual practices look like. If religion was a part of it, what did that look like? What role did it play for me? Like it opened up more than just this assessment, because that's all she went by. And like I said, she was a student, so I don't know what number I was on her list, but it was just strictly questions just based on this assessment. Um, and I and not necessarily, I don't feel like, because you know how we can veer off
mm,
and kind of just intuitively pick up
yeah,
questions we need to ask next. I didn't really feel that.
yeah,
She could have, like I said, but I wanted to bring, like I said, more of a holistic
mhm,
experience in therapy, and
yeah,
that's what I would have loved to have.
yeah,
I think that would have nurtured me a little bit more.
yeah,
And now knowing that now, that's the work that I do in my practice,
yeah.
because I know that it's needed.
It's funny because I think almost every clinician that I know, we've all said the same thing. We kind of became the therapist that we once needed, or some for some of us that we still need it. When you think about it, what I hear you saying is when I did the agency work, there was an incongruence there with who I am, so it was a misalignment. And now that I'm in business for myself, who I am at my core is able to be completely aligned with my professional identity. There is congruence there, which better alignment means better health emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. So that's quite a journey that you were on. If you had to, do you had to leave some last words for two people, and sometimes they could be the same person, right? For a person that might be a client that may desire therapy but is afraid to go, or for a clinician who is actually, again, sometimes that same person has never really experienced therapy, or at least not good therapy. What would you say to them about beginning this journey and the benefits and the challenges that it might bring you?
I always check in with myself of what do I need at this time.
Mhm.
So I'll do my research. Like, what do I need at this time? when it comes to looking for a therapist. And if it is more from like, so if I know that right now I need to work on my finances,
Hmm.
like, then I may go to someone who's a financial counselor, but I look for someone that is going to meet that need at the time. And so I look online. I'm always searching online to see, because, like, we're coming online slowly but
Yeah,
surely, but I look online to see if I align with them and to listen to the message and what they say. And then also just be open to the
yeah,
process. When it comes to clinicians, when it comes to us, what I've noticed in the counseling room is like, we're afraid to talk to us, because that was my thing. Like, once I finally got to the point of being a clinician, before I went back in, like, I had to check with myself. I'm like, why won't you just go talk to somebody?
yeah,
And I'm like, well, because we also have this stigma inside our own community of coming to see us. And
yeah,
I've seen it whenever I work with other
yeah,
clinicians. And I'm like, I don't want it to be that way.
yeah,
I don't want us to feel that we can't even come to us,
yeah,
other clinicians, to be able to get the help that we need, because we do some deep work.
yeah,
We do some deep emotional work. And if we don't even have somebody that we can go to be like, let me just talk. Let me just tell you about this because I need some help. Because I don't ran out. You
yeah,
know, if we don't even have somebody we can talk to, that it hurts me to hear it whenever I do work with other clinicians.
yeah,
Um, because I know what that's like.
yeah,
I know what that's like, not to know where to go to be able to get that help and to feel safe. So then I can only imagine, what it's like when clients, want to come in and like, well, will I be safe with this person?
yeah,
Will they get me? Will they understand me? And so I always try to tell people, like, keep an open mind. First, what is it that you need help with? But keep an open mind. And I always look for the more of the problems. Like, I don't I'm not looking to go see someone for a specific diagnosis.
yeah,
It's more of, this is the life problem that's bothering me right now. I need some guidance.
yeah,
Because the diagnosis, I always try to tell people, I'm like, the diagnosis is for us to guide treatment if that's what we need.
yeah,
It's not for you to come and say, like, I need help with this.
yeah,
What's going on behind that, though? So whenever people come and they're like, hey, I got this life problem, because sometimes people don't even know that's what we
yeah,
do. They just think that we're just DSM heavy. But I'm like, no, we work on life
yeah,
problems, because the life problems manifest into this diagnostic manual over here. And so let's work on these life problems to ease the pain,
yeah,
to ease the wounds that you have that may have been created in childhood, young adulthood, or even now as an adult.
yeah,
Let's just ease the pain. So keep an open mind and I'd go with the problem, because that's how whenever I went back, I wasn't like, oh, it's his mental. No, I went with the problem.
yeah,
This is the problem I'm having. I need some help. I need you to listen and give me some guidance on what I need to do
yeah.
next. And that's all I needed.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice, and so for the listeners out there, it's basically you might already know you have depression or anxiety or autism. You might already have a dynamic disability. You may have a host of things, and what Whitney is saying, and what most of us believe is the diagnosis can help. It's just one small facet, so that can help us guide treatment, but from a therapeutic perspective. But really, it's about what's impacting you. How is that showing up in your life? I always tell people when I'm trying to flesh out how something's impacting you, frequency, duration, intensity, and context, right? So how frequently is whatever that's happening? I'm having crying spells, or I just feel like a failure. How often do you get that feeling? How long does it last for? Right? The intensity, how intense is that feeling? Is it a deep self-loathing? Is it a hate for yourself? Or is it just I'm a perfectionist and I feel like I'm failing, right? And then what is the context of that? Have you recently lost a job? Have you recently, grieved the loss of something else? Have you had a loss of a relationship, a family member, a friendship? So there's context always. All things in context will make sense eventually. And so we're there to partner with you guys to kind of pull out those things. Um, Whitney, this has been such a joy. Yeah, I wish we had like 5 more of these because again, and the guests are by this point used to probably hearing me say this, pretty much most people I have on here, we can get on a call and it can last for a very long time. If you could be a fly on the wall of the things that we discuss, some pretty brilliant things. So this will absolutely not be your last time on the show. I want to thank you for one, just being open and vulnerable, sharing journey, I think there's so many that can be impacted by not just the part of the journey that brought you to this space of therapy, but this part of your journey now. And I already am aware of how many women that you've helped and assisted. So I can only imagine how many more will be led to reach out to you, um, but also just inspired by today's message and by the things that you shared. So I want to again thank you. I want to encourage all the listeners out there really, really to take a look at again self-love, which directs a lot of this stuff. I always tell people when we really have a healthy dose of self-love, and somebody asked me last week what that was, and I said, the ability to be able to value yourself and care for yourself in a way that nobody else is able to do, right? And so being able to love yourself, to direct that love inward versus to external things. Like, I love this about me, I love that about me, but those are external things. Internally, to be able to receive that love, that unconditional love is huge. And so that allows you to be able to embark on the journey like Whitney described. I would absolutely encourage a lot of you women, particularly the women that Whitney services, a lot of millennial women who may be having challenges with loving themselves, with releasing things, with feeling the need to have guidance and feeling that they're in an impasse in their life, especially those life stage transitions where you kind of feel stuck. Um, just being able to get in that space with Whitney, if you really want that mind, body, spirit connection and you really want all the pieces to be aligned and not disconjointed, I would really, really encourage you to reach out to Whitney Radford McGee. Whitney's information will be posted so that everyone can get to it. As always, we are so excited to have you, Whitney. She will also be back at a later date because given the one topics we could talk about, duh. So again, thank you, Whitney. Thank you to the listeners. And until next time, take care of yourself.